The Galaxy Council fears as humanity. Sever's all diplomacy part. The great chamber of the Galactic Concord hung in silence, suspended in the velvet dark of space like a jewel of glass and light. Viridia Prime, the neutral orbital station where species from across the spiral arm gathered to speak instead of fight, had never felt so heavy. Inside the central dome, rows of curved benches curved upward like petals around a sunken floor. There, under the soft glow of bioluminescent vines that pulsed with the station's heartbeat, delegates from 37 civilizations sat motionless, their many eyes, some compound, some lidless, some hidden behind visors, were fixed on one figure standing alone at the center podium. Daniel Carter adjusted his dark gray uniform, the silver earth insignia on his shoulder catching the light. He was not a soldier, not by training. He had spent 20 years in diplomacy, learning alien tongues, smoothing over misunderstandings and trading favors like currency. But today his face showed none of that practiced calm. His jaw was set. His hands, though steady, gripped the edges of the podium like he was holding back something fierce. Behind him, the massive viewport showed the slow turn of Viridia Prime against the starfield. Distant freighters blinked like fireflies, peaceful, orderly, the way the Concorde liked things. Carter took a breath. He did not look at the screens that showed his words being translated into dozens of languages. He did not glance at the Zenth delegate, whose chitinous fingers tapped impatiently, or the gelatinous Lurathi whose form shimmered with unease. He spoke plainly in Standard Galactic, the common tongue forced upon all newcomers. Effective immediately, he began, his voice low but clear. The United Earth Directorate terminates all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Concord. A ripple went through the chamber. Not loud, most species here did not gasp or shout, but the air changed. The Morathi's tentacles coiled tighter. The Veln ambassadors' spines flared. Even the ever-calm Cathari, whose faces showed no emotion, leaned forward slightly. Carter continued. We will no longer attend council sessions. We will not respond to Concord communications. All embassies, trade offices, and liaison teams will be recalled to Sol space within 72 hours. Any Concord vessel entering human-controlled territory without explicit clearance will be treated as hostile. He paused. The silence stretched. Someone's breathing apparatus hissed. A data slate clattered as it slipped from a trembling hand. This is not a negotiation, Carter said. This is not a protest. This is final. Then he turned and walked away, his boots clicking softly against the polished floor. No one stopped him. No one spoke. The doors slid shut behind him, and only then did the chamber erupt. Not in anger at first, but in fear. The Zenth delegate Kavor clicked his mandibles rapidly, a sign of deep distress among his kind. They cannot do this, he rasped. Humanity is not a major power. They joined the Concord barely 80 cycles ago. They rely on our hyperspace lanes, on our trade networks, on our protection. Protection? Scoffed the Veln commander, her voice like grinding stone. From what? They've beaten back raiders in the Krell Expanse twice without Concord aid. Their ships are faster, their weapons unpredictable. A Lurathi elder pulsed a soft blue, the color of worry. Unpredictable is dangerous, but silence is worse. Why cut all ties? What do they gain? No one had an answer. In the back of the chamber, a young aide from the Mirathi delegation watched the chaos with wide, dark eyes. She had studied human history in secret, against her elders' wishes. She knew their wars, their art, their strange obsession with freedom, and she remembered a phrase from an old Earth text. When the quiet ones stop talking, run. Back on the human diplomatic shuttle, Carter sat alone in the dim cabin. The ship hummed as it detached from Viridia Prime and turned toward the Sol system. He stared out the window, watching the station shrink into a speck of light. His hands finally shook. He had delivered the message exactly as ordered. No extras, no explanations. Just the cold, clean break Earth demanded. It had started months ago. The Concord had grown bolder. First, they demanded Earth share its neural interface technology that let pilots control ships with thought alone. Then they insisted human colonies in the Helios Rift be handed over to neutral administration, which everyone knew meant Veln control. Last week, they'd issued an ultimatum: surrender all AI research or face sanctions that would cripple Earth's economy. The United Earth Directorate had met in emergency session. Not just politicians, but generals, scientists, even civilian leaders from Mars and Titan. For the first time in decades, they agreed on one thing: enough was enough. "We built our own ships," President Elena Ruiz had said, her voice quiet but firm. "We dug our own mines on asteroids no one else wanted. We survived plagues, wars, and climate collapse without asking aliens for help. We will not kneel now." So they chose isolation over submission. Carter closed his eyes. He knew what the Concord would think. They'd see this as weakness, a tantrum from a young species that didn't understand galactic politics. But Carter knew better. He'd seen the new shipyards near Jupiter. He'd heard whispers of projects with names like Helios and Iron Veil. Humanity wasn't hiding. It was preparing. The shuttle jumped to low warp, stars stretching into lines outside the viewport. In 72 hours, every human diplomat, scientist, and trader would be home. Every conquered observer would be escorted off Earth, Luna, and the outer colonies. The bridges would burn, and then, Carter didn't know. But as the shuttle raced toward the sun, he felt something he hadn't in years: hope. On Viridia Prime, the council remained in session long into the station's artificial night. Arguments flared. Accusations flew. Some called for immediate military action. Others urged patience. But beneath all the noise, one truth settled like dust. Humanity had changed the rules. They had walked away not because they were afraid, but because they no longer needed permission to stand on their own. And that, more than any weapon or fleet, terrified the galaxy. The Galaxy Council fears as humanity severs all diplomacy part. 6 weeks had passed since the break. On Earth, the sky still looked the same. Blue by day, star-dusted by night. But everything beneath it had changed. Cities hummed with a quiet urgency. Factories that once built passenger shuttles now stamped out armored hull plates. Schools ran drills not for fire or quake, but for signal blackouts and orbital alerts. People spoke less about holidays and more about rations, comm security, and which neighbor had signed up for civil defense. In Geneva, President Elena Ruiz stood before a global broadcast feed. She wore no fancy robes, just a simple navy jacket with the Earth seal on the breast. Her voice was calm, but her eyes held the weight of every human life. "The Concord asked us to give up our future," she said. "They wanted our science, our colonies, our right to choose. We said no, not out of pride, out of principle. We will not be told how to live by those who do not understand us." Millions watched. Some cheered, some wept. Most just nodded and went back to work. Far above, in the cold shadow of Mars, young engineer Leo Hayes floated inside a cramped maintenance pod. His hands moved fast over a tangle of wires and metal. Around him, the skeletal frame of defense platform Theta-7 loomed like a metal spider against the red planet's curve. Leo wasn't a soldier. He'd studied quantum shielding at Lunatech and joined the Solar Guard's engineering corps because he liked fixing things. But now, fixing meant upgrading old asteroid defense turrets with pulse cannons built from scrap and stolen Concord schematics. "Leo, you got that phase regulator synced?" Came a voice over his helmet comms. It was Mira, his team lead, orbiting nearby in a repair skiff. "Almost," he muttered, sweat stinging his eyes despite the pod's chill. "These old coils weren't meant for human-grade plasma loads. Gotta reroute through the backup capacitor." "You've got 10 minutes before the next patrol sweep," she said. "And don't fry the whole array again," he grinned. No promises. Below, on the Martian surface, entire districts had been converted into fabrication zones. Robots rolled out hull segments while humans in pressure suits welded seams by hand. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal. No one complained. They knew why they worked. Back on Earth, in the Pacific Ocean near the old Hawaiian Islands, Fleet Commander Nina Patel stood on the command deck of the orbital dock, Ares Station. Screens showed ship movements across the Sol system. Freighters rerouting, patrol cutters shifting orbits, deep space scouts going dark. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, her uniform crisp despite the long hours. "Report from Proxima," said an aide. Freighter Daybreak missed its check-in. Last signal was near the Krell border. Nina's jaw tightened. That was the 3rd this month. No distress calls. No wreckage. Just gone. "The Concord denies it," the aide added quietly. "Of course they do," Nina said. "But the Veln have been sniffing around that sector for months. And now we're alone." She turned to the main display. A map of human space glowed in soft blue. Red dots marked missing ships. Yellow zones showed high-risk borders. Green, safe zones, were shrinking. "Order all civilian vessels to stay within the Jovian perimeter," she said. "And double the watch on the Kuiper patrols. If they think we're weak because we cut ties, they're about to learn different." Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid belt, a small mining outpost called Haven 9 received a coded burst transmission. The message was short: recall all non-essential personnel. Prepare for lockdown. Old man Ray, who'd run the oxygen recyclers for 20 years, sighed and packed his few belongings. His granddaughter, Lila, just 12, clutched a stuffed dog made from spare fabric. "Are we in danger, Grandpa?" she asked. "Not if we're smart," he said, ruffling her hair. "Humans stick together. That's how we survive." Across the system, that same spirit spread. In Titan's methane lakes, scientists sealed their labs and armed their drones. On Luna, families moved into underground shelters not out of fear but readiness. Even children knew the new rules. Trust no unknown signal, report strange ships, and never ever share location data outside secure channels. Back on Earth, in a quiet suburb of Chicago, a retired teacher named Helen taped blackout curtains over her windows. Her neighbor, a former pilot named Carl, helped her reinforce the basement door. "You think they'll come?" Helen asked, hammer in hand. "Doubt it," Carl said. "But if they do, they'll find more than just houses. They'll find people who remember how to fight for their home." The truth was, no one knew what the Concorde would do next. Some hoped for peace. Others braced for war. But all understood one thing: humanity was on its own now, and that meant every person mattered. In orbit above Neptune, a stealth scout ship named Whisper drifted silent and dark. Its crew of 4 monitored long-range sensors watching for Velen patrols. Their mission wasn't to fight. It was to see, to know, to give Earth warning. "We're ghosts now," said Pilot Jax, barely 20, his eyes fixed on the starfield. No flags, no names, just eyes in the dark. His commander, a woman named Rhea, nodded. "And ghosts don't ask for permission." Far away on Viridia Prime, the Concorde debated endlessly. Some called for sanctions. Others pushed for a show of force. But none dared move first, because in the silence from Sol space they heard something unexpected. Not panic, not begging, but work. The steady, relentless sound of a species building its own future, brick by brick, bolt by bolt. And that sound scared them more than any battle cry. On Earth, night fell. Cities dimmed their lights to save power. Families gathered close. In homes, in bunkers, in ships drifting between worlds, humans did what they always did when cornered. They prepared, they protected, and they refused to break. The galaxy had turned its back, but humanity had never needed it to stand tall. The Galaxy Council fears as humanity severs. All diplomacy part, the Helios Rift had always been a quiet place. A stretch of warped space between 2 dead stars littered with ice shards and forgotten comets. No one went there. No one wanted to. It was too far from trade lanes, too unstable for safe travel. But now it pulsed with activity. 6 weeks after humanity cut all ties, a fleet appeared, not with fanfare, not with signals or declarations. One moment the rift was empty. The next, over 200 human ships hung in perfect silence, engines cold, comms dark. They formed a wide ring around a central point, like stones placed by a careful hand. At the heart of it all floated a command vessel, sleek and black, bearing no name, only a silver sunburst on its hull. Admiral Owen Briggs stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the void. He was a tall man with a scar across his left eyebrow, and eyes that had seen too many border skirmishes. He didn't wear medals. He didn't need to. His reputation was enough. "Construction drones deployed," said his first officer, a woman named Dana. "Phase 1 is underway." "Good," Briggs said. "Keep emissions below background noise. If they're watching, let them see nothing but shadows." And they were watching. From a hidden Velen scout ship 3 light minutes away, sensors strained to make sense of the human activity. What they saw made no sense. The humans weren't building weapons. They weren't mining. They weren't even talking to each other on open channels. Instead, hundreds of small spider-like machines crawled through space, welding beams of unknown alloy into a growing ring structure. The ring was already 10 kilometers wide and growing. "They're insane." muttered the Veln commander, his voice raspy. That structure will collapse under its own mass. No known material can hold that shape in 0G without constant support. But it wasn't collapsing. In fact, it seemed to grow stronger by the hour. Back on Viridia Prime, the Concord held an emergency session. Holograms of the rift played on every screen. Delegates argued, shouted, demanded answers. None came. They must be building a superweapon, insisted the Zenth warlord. It is the only explanation. Then why no power spikes? Countered the Marathi elder, her voice soft but firm. No weapon signatures. No targeting arrays. This is not Warcraft, this is… Something else, Kavor. The Zenth counselor who had spoken during the severance sat quietly. He remembered Earth's history. How they had built cities from rubble. How they had sent probes to stars before they even had warp drives. Humans didn't just fight. They created. And creation, he realized with a chill, could be more dangerous than war. On the silent fleet, work continued without pause. Engineers in vacuum suits guided drones with hand signals. AI cores hummed inside shielded chambers, calculating stress points and gravitational harmonics. The ring wasn't just metal. It was alive with microcircuits, self-repairing alloys, and energy conduits that glowed faintly blue. Leo Hayes, the young engineer from Mars, now floated near the outer rim, checking weld integrity. His hands moved fast, but his mind raced faster. He knew what this was. Not a weapon, a gateway. They're really doing it, he whispered into his comm. Focus, Leo, came Mira's voice. One faulty joint and the whole field collapses. He nodded and kept working. Down on Earth, news was scarce. The public knew only that the fleet was active near the rift. Rumors flew. Some said it was a shield, others a trap. But President Ruiz said nothing. She watched the feeds from the fleet in her private office, her face unreadable. They'll figure it out soon, said her advisor. Let them, she replied. Fear is a teacher. And the Conquered has a lot to learn. Meanwhile, the Veln grew impatient. Their leaders saw the human ring as a threat to their control over the sector. They sent a probe, small, fast, cloaked in neutrino shadowing, to get closer. It slipped past the outer patrols, drifting silently toward the ring's core. For 3 hours, it recorded everything. Energy flows, material composition, signal patterns. Then, without warning, a pulse of light, soft, not violent, washed over the probe. Its systems went dark. Engines shut down. Comms died. But it wasn't destroyed. Minutes later, the probe reactivated. Its course changed. It turned and flew straight back toward Veln space. When it arrived, it carried a single data packet. Inside was a message written in clear standard Galactic, "Do not interfere." The Veln High Command erupted in fury. Some called it a bluff. Others saw it as proof of human arrogance. But their top scientist, after analyzing the probe's logs, went pale. They didn't just disable it, he said. They rewrote its navigation core in under 10 seconds. Without touching it. From kilometers away. That kind of control. It's not just advanced. It's impossible. Yet there it was. Back at the rift, the ring reached 20 kilometers in diameter. Strange lights danced along its inner edge. Ripples of distorted space like heat haze over desert sand. Ships moved through it, not around it, as if testing something. Admiral Briggs finally spoke over fleet-wide comms. Initiate Stage 3. Activate the harmonic resonator. Deep inside the ring, a device no larger than a shuttle hummed to life. It sent out a low-frequency vibration, not sound, but a ripple in space-time itself. The ring responded. The haze inside thickened. For a brief moment, stars on the other side seemed to stretch, then snap back. It worked. On the bridge, Dana let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. We just bent space, she said. We just changed everything, Briggs corrected. Far away, alien sensors picked up the anomaly. Not an explosion, not a weapon firing, but a quiet tear in the fabric of reality, stitched back together with human hands. The Conquered fell silent again. Not the silence of shock this time, but of awe and dread, because they finally understood. Humanity wasn't building a weapon. They were building a door, and once it opened, no one, not the Conquered, not the Veln, not any power in the galaxy, could close it. The silent fleet stayed quiet. No boasts, no threats, just work. And in that silence, the galaxy heard the future knocking. The Galaxy Council fears as humanity severs all diplomacy, Part 4, The Concorde could not sleep. Not literally. Most of its members did not sleep like humans. But in the endless cycles of debate and analysis, rest had become a memory. The ring in the Helios rift grew larger every day, and with it, the fear inside Viridia Prime. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet they had shaken the foundation of galactic order more than any war ever could. Desperate for answers, the Council approved a mission no one wanted to admit they needed. A spy satellite, small and nearly invisible, cloaked in neutrino shadowing, the same kind the Velen had used, was launched toward the rift. This one belonged to the Marathi, masters of stealth. An observation. It carried no weapons, only sensors sharp enough to read the chemical makeup of a distant star's breath. For days it drifted closer, hidden in the debris field. Then at last it slipped inside the ring's perimeter. What it saw changed everything. The images flooded the council chamber in real time. Gasps rippled through the room, though most species did not gasp in the human way. The Zenth clicked their mandibles in rapid panic. The Lurathi pulsed deep red, the color of revelation and terror. Even the ever-still Cathari shifted in their seats. The ring was not a weapon. It was a gateway. Inside its center, space itself shimmered like water under moonlight. Stars on the far side bent and twisted, then snapped into place as if seen through a lens. Data poured in. Stable wormhole field, artificial gravity well, synchronized quantum locks. The humans had not just opened a hole in space, they had tamed it. Made it safe. Made it theirs. Worse, the telemetry showed something else. The gateway could be scaled. The design was modular. With enough power and material, it could link not just 2 points but many. A network. A web of instant travel that bypassed every Concorde-controlled hyperspace lane, every toll station, every checkpoint. Trade, communication, defense, all of it could flow through human hands alone. The Concorde's economy, built on control of movement, would collapse. "They are making us irrelevant," whispered a Velen delegate, her spines drooping in defeat. "No," said Cavor, his voice low. "They are making us optional." Panic turned to action. The Velen, proud and militaristic, could not accept this. They argued for a strike. Not a full war, just a surgical hit. Send a team to sabotage the resonator core at the ring's heart. Disable it before it went live. Make humanity crawl back to the table. The Council, torn and afraid, gave silent approval. 3 nights later, a Velen strike team launched from a hidden base near the Orion Spur. 5 soldiers, clad in adaptive armor that bent light and sound, rode a needle-thin craft coated in stealth polymers. Their mission was simple: infiltrate, destroy, vanish. They reached the rift undetected. The human fleet floated in eerie silence, lights dim, engines off. The ring loomed ahead, glowing faintly blue. The team detached from their ship and drifted toward the core module, using magnetic grips to climb the outer frame. Inside their helmets, they heard nothing but their own breath. No alarms, no patrols. It felt too easy. Then, without warning, the darkness around them came alive. Dozens of small drones, no larger than birds, detached from the ring's surface. They moved without sound, without light, forming a perfect circle around the intruders. Red sensors blinked once, like eyes opening. The Velen team froze. A voice crackled over their comms, not harsh, not angry, but calm. "Human. Female. You are trespassing on a restricted project. Surrender your weapons and you will not be harmed." The Velen commander snarled and raised his plasma rifle. "We answer to no human." Before he could fire, a pulse of energy washed over them. Not heat, not force, just a wave of pure electromagnetic silence. Their armor locked. Their weapons died. Even their comms went dark. The drones moved in, gentle but firm. They disarmed the team, secured their limbs with soft restraints, and guided them into a waiting shuttle. No violence, no threats, just efficiency. Hours later, the Velen strike team found themselves back in their own ship, floating near their base. Their weapons were gone. Their armor was powered down, and on the main screen, a message blinked in clear Velen script. "Next time, we won't be merciful." Back on Viridia Prime, the Council watched the feed from the recovered team's helmet cam. They saw the drones. They heard the voice. They saw how easily humanity had disarmed elite soldiers without spilling a drop of blood. Fear turned to shame, then to respect. They could have killed them, said the Marathi elder, but they chose not to. That is not weakness, that is control. Kavor stood slowly. We thought humans were loud, reckless, emotional. We were wrong. They are patient, they plan, and when they act, they do not waste a single move. On Earth, news of the failed strike never reached the public. Only the highest command knew. President Ruiz reviewed the footage in silence, then nodded to Admiral Briggs over a secure line. Good, she said. Let them know we mean what we say. In the Helios Rift, work continued. The gateway stabilized. Test ships passed through and returned within minutes, reporting smooth transit and zero time dilation. Colonies on Proxima and Barnard's star would soon be connected directly to Sol. No Concord permits needed. Leo Hayes, still working on the ring's outer frame, looked out at the stars and smiled. We're not just building a door, he told Mira over comms. We're building a home that reaches across the sky, and the galaxy, watching from the shadows, finally understood. Humanity was not asking for a seat at the table. They were building their own house, and no one would be allowed inside unless they knocked politely. The Galaxy Council fears as humanity severs all diplomacy. Part 5. The Conquered met one last time in the great chamber of Viridia Prime. But this meeting was different. No shouting. No frantic debates. The air was thick with something new. Uncertainty, yes, but also a quiet kind of awe. The humans had not fired a single weapon. They had not sent threats or demands. They had simply built something the galaxy could not ignore, and in doing so, they had rewritten the rules without ever raising their voice. At the center of the chamber, the main display showed the Helios Rift. The ring was complete now, a perfect circle of human engineering floating in the void. Ships moved through it like birds through a hoop. Mars freighters, Titan science vessels, even old colony transports painted with Earth's blue and white. Each one vanished into the shimmering center and reappeared light years away in seconds. No fuel burned, no time lost, just space bent to human will. Kavor of the Zenth stood slowly. His chitin, once proud and sharp, now seemed dull under the soft light. We called them children, he said, his voice rough. We said they needed guidance. But they have shown us something we forgot. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it builds. The Veln commander, who had pushed for war just weeks before, sat with her spines lowered. They disarmed our best team without harming them. They could have ended us. But they chose restraint. That is not the act of a reckless species. That is the act of one that knows its power. A long silence followed. Then from the back of the chamber, a Marathi delegate rose. Her tentacles moved gently, a sign of deep thought. The humans are not asking to rejoin the conquered. They do not want our laws or our oversight. But they have left a door open, not in space, but in spirit. They did not destroy us. They simply moved beyond us. The truth settled over the room like dust after a storm. Humanity had not declared war. They had declared independence. And in doing so, they had forced the galaxy to look at itself and see its own limits. On Earth, people did not celebrate with parades or fireworks. There was no grand announcement. Life went on, but with a new quiet confidence. Children played in parks under skies no longer watched by alien eyes. Factories hummed with purpose, not fear. In homes across the world, families ate dinner knowing their future was theirs alone to shape. President Elena Ruiz stood on the balcony of her office in Geneva, looking out at the city lights. The first stable wormhole link between Earth and Proxima Centauri b had just gone live. A child born on that distant world could now visit her grandparents on Earth before her first birthday. That was the real victory, not power but connection, not control but freedom. She thought of Daniel Carter, who had delivered the severance message with a heavy heart. He was back on Earth now, teaching at a university, helping young diplomats understand that strength and kindness were not opposites. She thought of Leo Hayes, still working on the ring, his hands calloused but his spirit light. She thought of Admiral Briggs watching over the silent fleet like a guardian of a new age. And she thought of Owen Briggs's words, spoken weeks ago over a secure line. We don't need their permission to reach the stars. Now, they didn't. Far from Earth, near the edge of known space, a small Marathi vessel approached the human perimeter. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, only a single envoy, Maya Dawson, Earth's newly appointed representative to independent species. She wore a simple gray uniform, her dark hair tied back, her eyes calm. The Marathi ship hailed her. You are not part of the conquered, their translator said. Why do you speak for humanity? I don't speak for all of humanity, Maya replied. But I speak for those who believe in talking before fighting. We are not your enemy. We never were. We just wanted to walk our own path. The Marathi envoy pulsed a soft green, the color of hope. Then perhaps we can walk beside you, not behind or ahead. Maya smiled. That sounds like a good start. Back on Viridia Prime, the council made its final decision. No sanctions, no blockades, no more secret strikes. Instead, they issued a quiet statement. The conquered would respect human space. Trade would resume only if both sides agreed, and any future contact would be on equal terms. It was not surrender. It was recognition. In the asteroid belt, Old Man Ray and his granddaughter Lila watched a live feed from the ring. A school shuttle from Mars passed through the gateway, heading to a science exchange on Proxima. Lila pointed at the screen. Grandpa, will I get to go through it one day? Ray put an arm around her. If you want to, yes. And you won't need anyone's okay to do it. On Luna, Carl, the retired pilot, helped Helen reinforce their greenhouse dome. They talked about planting real trees someday. Ones that had never seen Earth soil but would grow under human care all the same. In the command center of Ari Station, Nina Patel reviewed patrol routes. The red dots of missing ships were gone. The borders were quiet, not because the galaxy had given up, but because it had learned to respect the silence. And in the Helios Rift, the ring glowed steady and strong. Ships came and went. Humans moved through the stars not as beggars or bullies, but as equals to the universe itself. President Ruiz stepped back inside, the night air cool on her skin. On her desk, a message blinked. Short, simple, from the Helios Initiative team, Gateway Stable. Ready for the next step. She typed a reply. Then take it. Outside, the stars burned as they always had. But now between them ran threads of human light, thin, strong, and unbreakable. The galaxy had feared humanity's silence. Now it listened to what that silence had built, and in the quiet it found not an end but a beginning.